This is Dan Olds, and today we have kind of a treat for you. We're going to be talking to Brent Gorda, and he is, along with some others, one of the founders and really the father of the entire student cluster competition set of events. Hey, Brent, how you doing?
Hi, Dan. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Good to talk to you today. And you were there at the very beginning back in 2007 at the first SC student cluster competition, but I imagine it started even before then as an idea. So tell us a little bit about how it started up.
So actually, if there would have been space at '06, we would have run it there as well, but we just didn't have space. So '07 was the first year where we had space. Remember, it was in Reno and we had all that room up there. It started the previous year on the show floor, which I believe was in Seattle at SC05, and I was talking with a gentleman by the name of Bill Boas, and he said, you know, these clusters are getting quite mature, and we had this debate back and forth, and we finally arrived at the time was a bold statement that we thought clusters have come of age to the point where we think we can put 6 undergraduates, a pile of hardware, and a screwdriver, and they can build a cluster that can run some of these open source apps that we use day to day in the HPC community.
And what was the goal of that?
The goal was merely to prove that this technology was so mature and robust and available. You know, today they call it the missing middle. One of the big points was that industry can go to their local community college, they can hire a small number of CS students, and they can get access to high-performance computing. That was really the statement that I was trying to make at that time.
Interesting, and it's become so much more. I mean, it's become a huge educational opportunity for these kids.
Right. One of the outcomes of the first year that I was really, really proud of is that we affected the curriculum at a number of universities where they started taking HPC and teaching it to undergraduates. I just thought that was great. The other thing that, of course, the big win in my mind is that we're bringing new talent into high-performance computing. Those of us in the fold know that there's some really interesting science and technology going on in our community. And my thought there was if you just expose these young, energetic minds to it, they're going to pick it up, and now we'll have, you know, a pipeline of talent that we can draw from to move forward.
Absolutely, and that has certainly played through. And the number of kids that are getting jobs out of this. And some years it's been kind of like a job fair on the last day or two as they wander the show floor, but as exhibitors come by the booth to talk to them.
Right. Yep. I go by every year. I talk to the general chair who's putting on the event each year, and I say, which of these kids should I be talking to? And I go up and have private conversations with the kids to get a sense for, you know, what they're made of, what they're pointed at, and whether I can help guide them into a career in our community.
And the thing that I point out to the clients and folks that I talk to is that where else are you going to find this number of young people that can successfully do this, but that are self-motivated and interested enough to take 6, 8, 9 months of their own time to do this?
Right. Doesn't matter to me who wins the competition.
No.
Every single student that shows up is worth talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. So in putting this together, how did you arrive at the format and the number of apps and the power limit and all that stuff?
So it was iterative. Like I mentioned in the start, we thought a pile of hardware and a screwdriver, and I actually went to pitch this to the SC07 board, and there was a lot of back and forth, and the Le Mans start, which I had envisioned, was handily batted down.
By Le Mans, you mean they're there with cardboard boxes?
Yes, that was one of the early ideas that we were working on. But one presentation, I would give like monthly updates to the SC steering committee, and one of the presentations, Gary New, who's the guy that does the power for SC, said, why don't you just limit by power? We'll give you 2 circuits, 15 amps each, and there's your equalizing factor. And it just hit right there. It was brilliant. It's exactly what it's been since.
That's become the universal standard for all of these competitions.
Right. Well, another way you could go is you could say you have to use this architecture, but then you're completely limiting what the students can come up with on their own. A big aspect of this event is that the students go out and partner with a hardware provider, right? Mm-hmm. They're learning how to go out and sell an idea. So they go off to Intel or HP or Dell and say, we're really energetic, we want to do this, will you please give us hardware that will fit in this 30 amp limit? And they get, a significant amount of hardware. I don't know what the hardware is worth, but I got to say it's 50 to 100K worth of hardware that these companies just lend the students.
The thing that's great, too, is that it's not just the Intel, HPs of the world that are doing this, but for instance, last couple of years, a team from Boston University was sponsored by a mid-sized to small reseller called Silicon Mechanics out of Seattle.
Right.
They've really worked with these kids, and some of the stuff that the Boston guys have brought, it had every sort of processor outside of a garage door opener attached to it. I mean, and they've been talking about using FPGAs, they've been looking at all sorts of stuff, but they've been supported every step of the way by Silicon Mechanics, who's gotten some pretty good publicity out of it.
Yes, it's excellent publicity, and it still brings home the fact that clusters have arrived to the point that you can get them at your local integrator, right? You don't have to go to one of the big companies.
And actually, one more thing that Silicon Mechanics is doing is after the kids are done with the hardware, they have a contest, a grant writing contest, and they give it away to a nonprofit or an educational institution that writes the best grant proposal.
Wow, that's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah, great guys. So when you presented this to the committee, did it have universal acceptance? Did they see the value of it, or was it a big fight?
I wouldn't call it a big fight, but it was closer to that than universal acceptance. I went in with the idea that we're going to run this for, 48 straight hours.
Nice.
And the whole safety and security issue was huge the first year because we didn't know what was going to happen. But my thought at the time was I couldn't quite get my hands around how you tell the kids to go away at night and not have them logging in remotely, turning off the machines, that sort of thing. Now, GLAD has figured it out for ISC, of course. They've got a much more humane way of driving this competition where the students are kicked out at 6 p.m. or something and everything shuts down.
What they're doing is an application or two a day, and they have to turn it in before they leave.
But they don't get to go until they're done, right? They have a time limit. You got to be done at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I like both, and I think that it's nice to have both. The thing that was interesting this last year, though, is that more and more teams weren't there overnight. They were logging in remotely.
At SC or where
at
was
SC.
at
SC.
Okay.
In Salt Lake. So it wasn't quite the overnight marathon that it's been before. I kind of like the idea of requiring them to stay overnight.
We have lots of pictures of students sleeping under desks and chairs and dead pizza boxes and soda cans and all that. We provided a bunch of food for the students, and every morning I'd come in at about 6 o'clock and it would just be completely decimated. There'd be nothing left.
One constant throughout is the food, and the coffee is gone. Well, actually, a real quick funny story is one of the kids from Stony Brook had a friend or somebody in the military, and he had military spec caffeine that he would activate.
I didn't know that existed.
I didn't either.
That sounds scary.
It's in a little olive drab box, and it was military spec caffeine, and it seemed to do the job. So you get this thing going, and the first one was in Reno in 2007, and I think that was the year they had the power outage, right?
Indeed it was. That was an incredible opportunity there for learning experiences, shall we say. I think one of the Asian teams decided that they had lost the event based on that, and the team that had won had been doing checkpoints and automatically restarted when they came back. Other teams lost hardware and had to debug, and what appears to be a common theme, go out on the show floor and beg and borrow equipment to make up for what they've lost. That, I think, is a really good sign, right? That the vendors on the show floor are so supportive. Here, take one of the pizza boxes that we're using for demos. That's incredible to me.
There's been a story every year since I've been following it in 2010, where the other teams will pitch in with their spare hardware.
Yeah, there's typically a team that their hardware doesn't show up for one reason or another. and other teams have dug in and donated switches and spare nodes and that sort of thing, which is, that makes it even more incredible, because here's a team that's being handed new hardware that they've not seen before, have to start completely over from scratch with everything, and they can still show up and make race day. That's just incredible.
They're competitive, but they also all end up being buddies.
If you go visit these kids at the end of the show, like Wednesday night, Thursday night, they've made new friendships that'll last a lifetime. It's really awesome to see. I love going to talk with the kids, and they, of course, learn that I've been involved since the start, and there's a whole lot of jostling back and forth. The other thing you'll recognize is some of the kids that were in teams before are now leading the event. Right? Dustin's leading it this year, and he was one of the teams in the first year.
He was one of the teams, and I did a webcast with him a couple of years ago, that Colorado, that really got taken out by that power surge, by the power outage.
Right.
They lost 3 hours. Maybe that's not a bad thing to throw in every once in a while. Something unanticipated.
Yeah, I think if you're breaking hardware, though, I don't think you want to be doing it on purpose.
No, that's a good point.
I think, I've been around and around and around the rules, and the best I could come up with here is that at some point during the competition, a judge will come over and say, reboot and do it now. That would be the closest thing I could come up with a fake power outage.
That could work. And actually, the ISC guys have a good idea with their surprise application. And I think we might see that in future SC events, too.
We had discussed that previously, and it got us a couple steps towards more of a programming contest than what is more modeled after the throughput example. I worked at NERSC for a while, and Bill Kramer's PhD thesis was you judge a machine based on how much work it can do over a period of time. It's the workflow argument, and that's more what the event is judged after versus here's a piece of software you've never seen before, go figure out how to optimize it on the spot.
Yeah.
We had gone down that path and shied away from it. Not that it's, a bad idea. Certainly it has its place.
Their view of that is that it's, in their mind, kind of real world, in that this is something that's thrown on in addition to the other applications that they're running that day. So it's a bit of a wild card, and it also keeps a little bit of a field leveler too for the teams that are deeper in HPC versus the teams that just learned the apps that they knew they were going to have to run.
Yeah, but if you've optimized for a GPU and now we hand them an app that doesn't have any GPU capability, right? You've hobbled them.
Yeah, definitely true. This is the end of part 1 of our conversation with Brent Gorda. Stay tuned for part 2, where you'll hear more student cluster chat with me and Brent and see more pictures from the early days. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.